Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Double Take with John and Alex Safey. Today we are not going to be talking too much about sports themselves, but we're going to be talking about kind of what's been going on surrounding sports in the last few days, really. Today is Thursday night. We're filming this around nearly 10 p.m. Recording, not filming. And I think it's important that we start this episode off with talking about what has happened to Jacob Blake, a black man in Kenosha, Wisconsin. At around 5 p.m. on Sunday, this past Sunday, August 23rd, in Kenosha, Wisconsin, Jacob Blake, an unarmed black man, was shot at point-blank range in the back 7 times by a police officer. So the video was circulating on Sunday night, John, and I saw it on Twitter, and my initial reaction was like the same, pretty similar to what I had when I saw the George Floyd video. And
it's nearly as bad, honestly.
I mean, it's not even, to compare, you can't really compare. They're both, but just about as horrible truly,
of a video as you could see.
Really it is, and truly just like heartbreaking. And after seeing George Floyd, 2 months ago, my first thought was like, this is definitely, this is gonna have a similar impact. Like, there's no way people see this. Me seeing this video and having the feelings and just overwhelmed with emotions and like just seeing it, it's really truly disgusting to watch that video where he's walking away from, there's 3 police officers. It was reported that they had already tried to use a stun gun on him. They didn't work. And whether or not he committed a crime, didn't commit a crime, it seems, I don't think he did. I've read some things that he appeared like pretty much innocent. He was unarmed. He wasn't much of a threat. He's walking away, and there's 3 officers there. Like, all right, if he's a threat, there's 3 of you. Can't you tackle him? Can't you wrap him up? Isn't there anything that you can do other than shooting him right in the back? And not even, like, it's not like they shot him once either, which is something that I know that'd be crazy. Yeah. That'd be crazy regardless, because, like, why would you be shooting him anyway? But they didn't shoot him once. They shot him 7 times.
And that's the thing at the bottom line of just all the police brutality we've seen. And, like, I feel like, Trayvon was when we were, like, in middle school. Since then, the fact of the matter is no one deserves to die for, whether it was, George Floyd, he had, used a counterfeit bill, right?
Yeah.
And
$20.
Okay, so you can get arrested for a small crime like that or whatever, or get a ticket or whatever it is, but one of the founding principles of our country is everyone has their day in court, right?
Yeah.
And
due process, you're innocent until proven guilty.
Exactly. And here we see the cops now are the judge and the jury here, and the executioner, and they killed a man who
they didn't kill him.
Well,
they
right,
could have.
He's
they
paralyzed.
very easily could. I'm honestly.
You watched the video.
When I watched that video, I was like, "Oh my god!"
I watched the video
no way he's alive.
and immediately thought that.
But he'll probably never walk.
Right, and we I don't know if you've been seeing this at all, Alex, but his parents have been speaking. I've been seeing them on the news, and they just outlined how horrible his condition is. One of the bullets went through his spinal cord, so it'll be a miracle if he ever walks again. 7 of these bullets went through his body, so. You immediately think, like, they had to remove part of his small intestine, and I forget what other organ, I don't know what it was, but basically this man he's in a hospital bed, and they were asking him, people were asking his family members, does he know what's going on at all? And no, he does not know, that the world is all thinking about him and all the, what's about the sports leagues.
Now the sports world.
Exactly.
Which we're going to get into in a minute, but another thing I wanted to say is it was also reported that his children were in the car, which just adds so much more.
He's a 29-year-old father of 6.
He's 6 children. I don't know how many of them were in the car, but he was opening. I saw one thing that said he was opening the car to check on them and whatever. I'm sure a lot of people would dispute that too.
In the video, you immediately see the women screaming. They're
screaming and
in horror. Like, imagine watching your loved one getting shot 7 times before your own eyes.
And the way that it happened, like, the main thing that we're gonna go back to is like, why did it have to get to that? Why? There's 3 cops. Like, there's so many other ways you could do it. And something I was trying to say earlier is the way I felt watching that video, and I really think any human should feel, is just completely outraged and just stunned and just sick. I feel sick to my stomach.
Yeah, just sick to my stomach.
Now I can't imagine how people who are related to him, people who are black, people who it affects, like way more deeply than it affects me. Like for me, it's a video, and like at the end of the day, like which the privilege that I have is I can turn my head and not really think about that or care about that. There are black people who live in the black community in our country in America who raise their children, and they have to explain to them why is this happening, or explain like this is something that is possible. Like this is something you have to worry about and live with, and like, it's something we will never have to do.
Yeah, and a really interesting just story that I heard, which is actually on a sports channel, was First Things First, Nick Wright, who he says, I'm white and I don't experience, the same America that black people experience, but I raise a black son because he's married, his wife is black. So he talks about, his son is about, I think his son's in his 20s now, but he talked about how 4 years ago when he was 18, a few stories from that year. It was like 1 month he got stopped in a restaurant because some woman said, him and his friends his buddies were just sitting there and
with his son,
and how a woman blamed them and said they stole something, and he's like, Dad, what do I do? And Nick Wright says, like on the show, he's like, and what do I tell my son? Do I tell him to run and then incriminate himself, or to stay there and wait for the cops to get there? And he said another story a few months later where a similar thing happened, and like Nick Wright he's like crying on the show. He's very emotional, and he's explaining just like the fear you have, and I think it was just a perfect like 4-minute clip I saw like on Twitter, because you could just see the pain in someone's eyes when they fear for their loved one. And I think that's what a lot of white people unfortunately can't grasp when they see these videos. Yeah. They'll just chalk it up as, well, he was a criminal, like that's that, or like this is such an outlandish, ridiculous, just horrible racist take. Like, oh well, George Floyd, he used the fake dollar bill, whatever. Yeah. He deserved to die. Like really? No, that's not how our country works.
It's not even that they'll say, well, you deserve to die. It's like, well, what are they doing in the first place that leads them to that?
Yeah, it's when you try and blame the person that's in the situation where the cop clearly didn't do their job.
Yes, and another thing that I want to bring up really quick, just as a juxtaposition, is we've seen with many school shootings or shootings of other public places, but I'll talk about the one in Parkland, Florida. Nicholas Cruz, who was I think 19 years old, 19-year-old kid. He's white, and the picture and what you see, the way he ends up after murdering 17 people in a school. He shoots up a school. And the way that he ends up handcuffed on the floor, just looking at the camera. Like his face isn't bloodied up. He doesn't have a bruised nose. Like literally, there's nothing wrong.
He just killed dozens,
murdered, went into
people.
A school and murdered 17 people, and he walks out pretty much unscathed. Of course, he's in prison now. And
another good example is this kid, a 17-year-old kid who took it upon himself to go kill some protesters as well, right?
Yeah,
Kyle Haddon something, whatever.
He shot 3 people, including he killed 2 people, and was walking right by the cops with a massive gun, in which he took and crossed state lines. He was from Illinois and went to where the protests were in Wisconsin. Crossed state lines, which is illegal. He's also 17, not allowed to have a gun at that age. There's plenty of police cars walking, driving around, and they drive right past him. He's walking right past him with a massive gun. Like, and my thing too is like, all right, if you're the cops and you're going to stop, I know there was protests. I read that some of them got violent. Whatever the case is, aren't you going to be looking out for that? Like,
I just don't understand.
If they're turning violent, isn't the number one thing you're looking for that massive gun? Also, I just want to address this too. I saw a video where he's like, we're here to protect this business and da-da-da. Really? You came across state lines to protect a business? It's not your business. And actually something that Trevor Noah, you sent this video to me.
Trevor Noah
was like, no one cares about that local business so much that you're standing out there, you're crossing state lines.
He said no one's going to protect TJ Maxx. Yeah, like, you went because you wanted to kill people.
Exactly. You showed up there because this is an opportunity. I can bring my gun. I can do and of course it's just disgusting that people are defending it, like Tucker Carlson.
Exactly. Tucker Carlson on Fox News justified this kid's actions, and I saw 2 other tweets saying, "Oh, I wish this kid was my bodyguard." Someone retweeted it. I was some verified.
This guy should be president.
I wish he was my president. Like, are you kidding? Like, how are people so clearly? I mean, it's like just racist. Yeah. That's the problem with this country. And when you can clearly see this white kid 2 days after what happened to Jacob Blake, who was slowly walking to his car, but he's a black man, so he gets shot 7 times. Yet there's a kid who killed 2 people, and he's white, nothing happens, untouched. I mean, that's just so clear.
Away,
that's
he turned himself in.
Like and that is the manipulated variable. It was the color of their skin in the situation.
Okay, so we had to give that intro because it's very important that we talk on that, and that's also important that that's the background for what we are going to cover a little bit more. The rest of the show with the NBA quote-unquote boycott, although it's not a boycott. John, what has happened in the NBA bubble? What happened yesterday and what happened today?
So it's really quick. You touched on quote-unquote boycott, which I don't know why this is not more spread, but boycott is the incorrect term to use.
Not a boycott.
So the definition, and I saw this tweet. We were talking about this, Alex, before. Boycott doesn't sound like the right word.
Yeah, why are they saying boycott? Boycott would mean you're against the NBA.
Exactly.
They're not against the NBA.
And I stumbled upon this on Twitter, and it was from Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And so AOC's tweet was, NBA players are courageously on strike, withholding labor, not boycotting, withholding their money or purchase. The difference is important because it shows their power as workers. So the point here with the WNBA and the NBA that they aren't boycotting is the fact that they're workers and they're withholding their labor. So they're taking their labor, and that's called being on strike.
Yeah.
So like the New York Times, one of the front pages of their, an article it just said boycott. And I think AOC retweeted it and said, change your cover page. It's not a boycott, it's a strike. So
and I was just surprised because me and you, like one of the first things we said when it was like literally the first reports are coming out, the Bucks will boycott this game, whatever, the NBA playoffs. And I was like, that's really my first thought, boycott. That's not the right word.
That'd be like it's like when we don't want to support Goya because Trump did, or what was the other, Goodyear. We don't like Goodyear because Goodyear was anti. Exactly.
Anyway, so what happened in the bubble yesterday, John?
So yesterday there were 3 playoff games that were supposed to be played, starting off at 4 p.m. The Milwaukee Bucks were going to play the Orlando Magic in Game 5 of the series, but there had started to be there were some murmurs around the league, some rumors. I never really fully saw stuff other than on Twitter, like the Raptors are thinking about sitting out a game or even going home. And I was immediately questioning, okay, so now we're getting back to something that Alex, you and I actually talked about on, I think it was episode 11 or whatever, on episode 11 of Double Take. And when Kyrie brought up this point, we don't want to go to the bubble. This, after the George Floyd shooting, Breonna Taylor, all the Black Lives Matter protests, we have momentum and we don't want to just go play basketball and whatever. And everyone shot Kyrie down. Like, I can pull up some quotes we had from that of, Kendrick Perkins going against him. Stephen A. said social injustice isn't a reason to not go to work. Austin Rivers said, listen, Kyrie, you make a lot of money, but other players like me, we need to go to the league so we can have our platform. We can make more money. So everyone quickly shot that down. So when I was like, oh, they're talking about not bringing the season back, I was just a little bit confused as to what the plan would be. And
because that was kind of our takeaway and our conclusion of that episode was, if you guys are going to not play basketball, in which you could see how you could, I mean, we've seen it now actually happen where there was so many ways for them to spread awareness about social justice. It's like, if you're not going to be playing basketball and you're going to give up your platform, what will you be doing instead of that? What's the good alternate?
So that's definitely been the theme of the last 2 days. So essentially, this 4 p.m. game, the Orlando Magic are ready to play on the court. And one of the Bucks players, there was a quote that one of the players said, I came to the stadium, or not the stadium, the bubble, wherever.
It's an arena.
The court ready to play. And even I think 2 Bucks players were warming up. But at one point in the locker room, they started discussing this. And a few minutes after 4 p.m., when the tip-off was supposed to happen, they weren't out there. And soon after, then the Orlando Magic joined them, and then there was talks about the Bucks were going to take a loss, essentially. They forfeit the game.
Yeah.
But the Magic said they would not accept that. And eventually, all the teams joined. So the next game that was supposed to happen, I think at 6:30, was the Thunder and the Rockets. I saw a video on Twitter of Russell Westbrook and Chris Paul meeting. The teams agreed they were going to go on strike and not play that game. And as well, the Lakers and Blazers game that was also at 9 p.m. that night. And then it extends out to today. They canceled the games for today, or they're postponing them.
Yeah.
And the point at first was, what's going on? Is the season over? Everyone's kind of questioning this. And immediately that night they began discussions, and all the players, the 13 teams that were remaining, the players and the coaches met in a big ballroom in Disney World, still, and started discussing what they could possibly do. And just quickly to go back to what the Bucks did. So the Bucks sat out, they're in their locker room, and they started to think about what they could possibly do to make change here.
They called the Attorney General, right? While they're in the locker room, they called the Attorney General of Wisconsin.
Yeah, so let me pull up this article right here. So the ESPN article, it's called Inside the Hectic Hours Around an NBA Boycott. So here's a quote just from the article. Inside the locker room, Bucks players were on a Zoom call with Wisconsin Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes and Attorney General Josh Call, which had been facilitated by team owner Mark Lasry and Senior Vice President Alex Lasry. So basically, they get on the phone. They started talking. They were asking what they could do to create change. They were very interested in a call to action. Here's a quote. They wanted something tangible that they could do in the short and in the long term. They wanted the walkout to be step one. So this is step one. They walk out. This isn't just, okay, so what are they doing here? It's like you're not playing basketball, but what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. And really the point was for them to sit, brainstorm, figure out what they could possibly do. And that extends later into the night when they have the big meeting with all 13 teams and players and coaches.
I think it's two-sided for sure because on the front end, all right, no NBA games today. Let's say, you and I, we didn't know about Jacob Blake. We didn't know about what was happening. And we're big NBA fans.
It's easy for people to just assume, everyone's seen it, everyone knows it. But even our my mom and my aunt who we're staying with right now in Connecticut,
they didn't really know until yesterday.
Yeah, they're working all day. They don't have Twitter for some reason, and they're not watching the news all the time. They hadn't seen it. They had heard about it, but they had not seen the video until we went up and showed it to them. So. For the average NBA fan who maybe doesn't pay attention to the news or is on Twitter, this is obviously they go to watch the 4 p.m. game, and what happens?
Oh, there's no game.
Game.
Why is there no game?
And now they're looking more, and that's bringing awareness, bringing light to the issue.
Of course, an innocent unarmed black man was shot 7 times in the back by the police. So you see, so I think it's two-sided. Like you have them stopping they were able to bring awareness, and then also like gather their thoughts, take a deep breath. I think I saw. It was that George Hill said this, and he's like, we really want to like take our time and like not just come out with like all of our raw emotions, and we just want to take our time, like think, what can we do? Let's brainstorm. And something that
they were in there for 3 hours figuring it out.
I think it was really just me picturing it and just hearing about it. It was really a beautiful moment for the NBA, for the country. Like I just think for all these guys that they're not only that they ended up all going on strike and not playing any of the games. That they're all together in the bubble and doing this together. Like it's like
they would never be able to do that.
Yeah, that's the thing. In general, when you have all these guys in the same room, and it's beautiful that this league can. They're striving to be more than just a bunch of guys dribbling a basketball.
Exactly.
And it's beautiful to see.
And that's this sentiment that's been echoed time and time again by a lot of players, specifically LeBron James. We will not shut up and dribble.
Yeah.
And we see that where they said, listen. Right, we know how much money and how much influence and fame we have, and we want to use that for good because there's an injustice that we see going on, and we want to make right with it. So this sport, the basketball, this is just a game. And for right now, we're going to put this aside. We're going to take our 3 hours in the locker room and figure this out, call the Attorney General. We're going to spend, apparently they were on the phone or in the meeting into the hours of the early morning discussing this.
The meeting finished at 11. I think it was 11.
But some players stayed out.
But but a lot of them ended up staying, breaking off into different groups and continuing to talk. I mean, how could you not, right?
Right.
But one comment I did want to share from an anonymous NBA player via Bleacher Report, Taylor Rooks, and this was a comment he made on his takeaway from the meeting so far, and I think this really encapsulates kind of, I guess, generally what I've been reading and seeing from what these NBA players are getting at, and what them seeing Jacob Blake and what their thoughts were, and this is his takeaway: that we're not doing enough and we have work to do. I think this was a wake-up call to the whole league to really check guys and say kneeling isn't enough, post-game messages aren't enough, and that we really have to get involved in our respective cities and our home cities and be active. We also have to help each other. We can't do it alone. Right. So I think that was, once again, getting back to what we talked about back in June with the question of, all these protests are going on. Should we not go back and play basketball? And it's like this I think what we've seen in the last, I don't know, month and a half, or actually about a month now since the bubble has started, is the messages, everything, all the symbolic calls to
Black Lives Matter in big font on the court.
Black Lives Matter,
the names on the back of the jerseys,
everything, and it's really
even the questions they ask in the post game interviews.
Of course, and the fact that like they have the opportunity to like talk about these issues,
and all the donations show a lot of players have been donating. LeBron even started the voting rights activist group. Which
I was gonna say all the stuff that like the NBA has done, beautiful, great job, like kudos, clap your hands. But that's also relatively hollow activism, I would call it, because yes, you're raising awareness. Yes, it's great that like we live in a world where or in a country where this is starting to be embraced a little more and talked about more on like platforms. It's like, all right, the NBA basketball.
Or you can tweet Black Lives Matter. But at the end of the day, is that going to solve racism?
Yes, exactly. What are we actually doing? What can and especially these men, this league of players, extremely wealthy, they have a lot of influence. So what can they actually do to
help fix the system?
Yeah, and I think we've seen LeBron. Of course, LeBron is a guy which I saw. I think it was like Jared Kushner had said something like, Trump would be willing to talk to him about this, but I want to see what he's doing himself. What is he actually going to do?
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
And I saw someone literally retweet it and like post, let's see, he started a school in like the inner city of Ohio, of Cleveland, Ohio. He's started this voting rights activist groups, and I think with the awareness that they've spread, like their goal is like, all right, hopefully we're not playing these games. People will educate themselves, and we can educate them. And now maybe, all right, it'll trickle down to voting and vote who they vote for.
That's a big takeaway you've been saying.
In the White House and in Congress and so on and so forth. And hopefully it can get people in office that are going to actually, enact change. Also, what can we as NBA players who have, we have all this affluence and influence, how can we use that and actually do things? And we've seen LeBron doing the voting rights group. He's done the school. And now the Bucks were talking to the Attorney General and saying, and I imagine the next, right now it's Thursday night, and the next day or so or whatever, we'll figure out more about what did they talk about in this meeting and how much more information, how much more, what are the next plans and next steps of action they're going to go
So that is one thing I wanted to get into, and that's what this article on ESPN outlines so well. Is this meeting in this ballroom, and I just couldn't imagine what it would be like to just be a fly on the wall and watch this meeting of 13 teams, all the coaches and players in there. And I just wanted to read one part of it, but it's essentially this huge dialogue of, Doc Rivers says this, Bucks guard George Hill responds, Kyle Korver says this thing, some people, fire back, then Jaylen Brown comes in and defends the Bucks, and it's this huge dialogue that from coaches and players is just really incredible. And I just wanted to read this one part of it towards the end where they discuss how in the meeting the players and coaches need to decide if they were going to go forward to the season. And Patrick Beverley of the
Los Angeles Clippers.
Of the Clippers, I almost said Houston Rockets there. He said, "Some of you don't want to play, but you won't say it in front of the coaches." Beverley said, according to sources. Rivers agreed, this is Doc Rivers, and led the coaches out of the room. But it didn't result in clarity. Many players said they wanted to continue playing, including the Bucks, sources said. Many did not. Players in the Lakers and Clippers voted to not continue the season, and several, including James, left the meeting early. It was not seen as a formal vote, just a moment of reckoning. After a day no one will soon forget. If we stop playing today, one front office executive asked his players on Wednesday, is that changing anything in the world? Will everyone else in the world just move on and then will we lose our platforms? Another executive asked. The question we asked our players, what do you hope to accomplish by not playing the games? The answers were very different. I think that's something everyone is still formulating for themselves. What's the end game here? And does not playing accomplish it? And the last part here, I thought this was just a nice finish to the article. It's far too soon to know whether things will look clear on Thursday, but the NBA had reached a point where it just needs to stop, to think, to feel, to plan, or maybe just to breathe. So thinking about everything going on in the bubble, during a pandemic, during an election year, where there's been multiple cases of police brutality within the past few months.
Honestly, some of the most horrific ones that we've seen it since
the past two videos. George Floyd video of
the past 10 years, we've seen it, honestly, the last 50 years, so many things like this. But these ones that were captured on video.
So just for them to stop and and this is in the middle of a big point in their careers, which, whether you're, I don't know, a lawyer or, a salesman or whatever, everyone can relate to having a big point in their career. And for athletes, it's the playoffs, and they're supposed to be focused on only this. But right now, they're saying, we have all this influence. We have a lot of money. We want to make our communities better. We want to figure out how to help this country. And they need to stop and do that. And I think that's my takeaway from this whole thing. And, all these players, like, for example, one quote from Jaylen Brown, I don't know it on point, but someone asked him, Jaylen Brown, like, what do we do? And he goes, I don't know, like, I'm 23 years old. Like, people keep asking me that, and it's tough. I don't know how to solve systemic racism. Yeah. And so everyone's looking at these players like, what's your big answer, guys? Like, what are you going to boycott? Like, not boycott. What are you going on strike for? And I think the thing is here, I'm just glad that conversations are being had, and that they're talking about this, and that they're saying, we have power, we have money, we're going to figure out how we can use that influence and leverage it, and maybe get in with the owners, get in with the fans, and find ways to use our influence and our affluence to help become the positive change that we want to see in the world.
Yeah, and I want to talk about LeBron really quick. You mentioned there, you read that excerpt in which he left the room and led both the Lakers and the Clippers out, and it seemed like they were very in strong support of not continuing the season. And so LeBron, obviously, I would say he's the most influential player in the NBA right now, one of the most influential people in the country, period. Right before the NBA restart, we gave our opinions, our takes on who has the most to gain from winning the championship this season. And we both picked, I think, we didn't say it was LeBron, but we probably
Giannis.
We made the argument that LeBron's probably like top 3. Like,
the reason we said it couldn't be him was because he could only go from being the second best player of all time to the first.
Yeah, and so, but LeBron undoubtedly, I would say he's probably top 3. Is like what could he gain from winning these playoffs and finishing the season, and for him to be the guy who is like very strong, like no, like I mean,
this is more important than our careers than as basketball players.
Whether or not like. It seems like they knew deep down that like after that meeting, my speculation that they probably knew there was no way they were going to stop playing because of all the reasons they decided to continue playing back when they did their initial restart, for the money purposes, for having the platform that they have now. But for LeBron to walk out and like be like fully like that, like, I don't care, I mean business. I think it's a pretty big deal, and. Like I said, he's the leader of the league. He's the face of the league. Like, it's huge for him to have been doing that.
Right. So to talk about not only like the legacy that LeBron will be walking away from, for the league in general, to forego the season, to finish the season, just to end it, there's so much financial incentive for the NBA executives, so for Adam Silver and all the other executives, for the owners, and obviously for the players and the coaches as well, who also make millions of dollars from the TV revenue. And there's incentive to continue the season because the fallout from that economically, obviously, we're in a pandemic and a recession right now. So they were already going to be facing losing league revenue from the ticket sales, but now after losing all the playoff TV revenue as well.
And especially as you get into like the later rounds.
Exactly. There was going to be a huge cascade effect on starting from the top up. If the NBA is not making money, then the executives aren't, and the coaches aren't, and so on.
And the players, ultimately, the owners are losing money.
The owners,
most of them are billionaires. They're not going to miss the money.
Exactly.
But of course, they're going to say, all right, well, like NBA players, you guys aren't getting paid.
So players were going to essentially lose. I saw a quote, something around like 20 to 30% of their salaries in the next season, and we're also going into a year where there could potentially be a lockout because they still have to renegotiate the collective bargaining agreement with the players union. So there was a lot at stake here, and that's why the biggest debate in this meeting last night, Wednesday night, was whether the league could do more from inside the bubble in Orlando or outside. Because if they were going to leave the bubble, it needed to be extremely worth it for something that they would not be able to do while they were still playing basketball.
Yeah, and that was one of my initial things. Was like,
so in
what
the
are you doing? Everyone's leaving the bubble. You're all dispersing. You're going home. Like you're giving up the platform. Like, what would you be doing that's actually like?
So a few players brought this up. CJ McCollum of the Portland Trailblazers challenged players who wanted to end the season not to forfeit this platform by just quietly returning to their homes. Boston Celtics swingman Jaylen Brown asked his colleagues, "Are you going home to work or are you going home to be on the front lines?" And Andre Iguodala of the Miami Heat said that if they stop the season, the players should be on the front lines of Kentucky or Wisconsin. Otherwise, what was the point? Some players were vocal about holding owners accountable and demanding they take concrete action. Among them, or LeBron James among them. So here, I think that's where you get to the point. And Michael Jordan was obvious. We had been hearing that he has been in talks with Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook, saying, as an owner of the Charlotte Hornets, what do you guys want? What do players want?
He's been kind of like an intermediary between the owners and the players, and it's dope to see it. Especially,
it's the GOAT.
It's the GOAT. I was thinking back to The Last Dance, and they had that little section where they said Jordan kind of really leaned into like no one we had seen before. He leaned into getting these endorsement deals, and one thing he said was they want him to speak out against it was actually, I think, a racist politician. Anyway, he says, I'm not going to say anything because Republicans, it was alleged that he said Republicans buy sneakers too. So it was pretty cool for me, at least in my opinion, to see, all right, Michael Jordan, known for like staying out of, issues that were political, even though I don't really argue this is that political, but for him to like fully support the players and be like, I have your back. And what it was reported, I think I saw this on like Beach Report, it said that he told the owners, right now, listening is better than talking.
Right. So I think
he's really strong leadership.
The owners have been very, accommodating, and they're saying, listen, players, what do you guys want to do? It's in our best interest and your best interest for us to come to agreement, to compromise, and to figure out what we can do with the season going forward. And I think that's good because obviously all of the NBA players are millionaires, but the owners are billionaires who are a lot older than, 23-year-old Jaylen Brown, who said, I don't know how to solve racism. Mm-hmm. These owners are more politically connected as well, and can have more pull and with lobbying and with government and whatnot. So for them to say, like, it was the owner of the Bucks that got them on the phone with the attorney general of Wisconsin.
He I don't know, what was the connection again? I don't know what it was, but
I don't know what the connection was, but
he was able to connect them with the attorney general.
Exactly.
And put them on the phone with his players.
Yeah, exactly. So the fact is that the owners can help the players create the change that they want to see as well, and that's why I think when they are going to hold out or they sit out these 2 games, they come to an agreement and say, owners, like, we want to do X, Y, and Z. And that's something I think it was Doc Rivers that said, guys, like, I think your platform is your talent. And for us, you have more power if you stay playing basketball. But for right now, we're going to take these 2 days to breathe, to talk, to figure it out. Let's come with a plan of, I think he said 3 steps, or it was 3 things that they want to get accomplished. So maybe it's organizing a march, or maybe it's an initiative they want to take up, or a fund they want to start. And all the owners will donate to it, and the players union will all donate to it, and this will go towards solving some more issues, and it'll be more concrete than having Black Lives Matter in big letters on the court, obviously.
So it seems like they've definitely taken these 2 days to I guess, just touch base, figure out, and like, actually let's make a game plan. Like, what are we going to do? But they did ultimately this morning decide, all right, we're going to continue with the season. And like, once again, they didn't want to like give up the platform that they've created with the bubble and everything, how the league has created all these avenues for the players to create awareness for what's been going on in social justice. But moving forward, John, the games are probably going to start up. They were saying maybe Friday,
tomorrow,
maybe Saturday. I think it wasn't like for sure Friday. But I definitely think we're going to see the players in the league like lean into it even more, if that's even possible. And
I don't know how, like, verbally, because they've pretty much been doing everything you can. The names on the jerseys, the post-game interviews, the wearing the hats before the game that said arrest the cops that murdered Breonna Taylor, the letters on the court, everything they've been doing. Like, Adam Silver, going into this, he is the best commissioner in sports, I would say, and maybe one of the best ever of all time, for the reason that he's truly cares. He listens to what his players want, and he goes forward and he does it. So with the bubble, all the players are concerned about how can we have an impact, and he said, listen, we're going to do X, Y, and Z to help you guys have this impact still. So going forward, that's what I think they're going to try and accommodate in any way the players can.
Yeah.
So they already have been able to do so much. I don't know what more they can do unless they come out with this plan to start a new fund or a march or an initiative that's going to make concrete, tangible change.
Exactly. And I think one thing, Chris Webber said it pretty well on TNT. He actually had tears in his eyes. He gave like a really, just in general, like a nice, just giving his thoughts on everything that was happening with the league and what the NBA was doing. But he said, I don't know what the next steps are, but the first steps and like very important steps were that, you garner everyone's attention, and that's what they've done with this. I'm not gonna say boycott, with this strike that they've gone on. So we'll see. We will see what's next. I think there's definitely these conversations. I really do value, and I have high hopes for what will come out of this, and move forward, and hopefully there really can be change, because once again, just seeing that video and after, it seems like just the other day we saw this video of George Floyd and of course hearing the story of Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, just everything that's happening, and I guess that was honestly one of the more shocking things for me too about seeing that video. Is like, really, like, again, this is happening, and it's really disgusting, and I don't know. I have no really words to describe like what I'm feeling about it, and like how like the NBA players and just everyone, and especially the black community, how do they feel about what's happening, and how is it still happening? Like, how? Like,
yeah, and we thought George Floyd would be the pinnacle of this, and of course we were wrong. A few months later, another black man is unjustly murdered, and so just to wrap this story up, I think what we'll see in the next day or two from the NBA is obviously the game starting again, because they made that agreement with everybody this morning at 11 a.m. But I do believe the NBA will have a concrete plan. The players will come up with whatever it was. Like, Doc Rivers encouraged them to come up with not three steps or three goals that they had to come away from these 2 days off with. And I think we will see a plan of some sort before they get those games started again.
Yeah, I definitely think there will be some definitive plan of like what's next and what are the next steps, as Chris Webber is referring to. And I have high hopes. And it should be good. So thank you everyone for listening. We just wanted to give our thoughts. It was definitely important to cover this, and it was, not even that this is one of the most important stories of the season, and incredibly, just to think that even like Kobe Bryant passed away in the beginning.
That feels like it was like 10 years ago.
That was at least 10 years ago. But this is one of the most important stories in the NBA ever. And I think this, like I think the article said that this will not be soon forgotten, and this day will go down in history, and it's a beautiful thing. So thank you for listening. Have a good one, everyone.